Good morning. I can't tell you what a joy it was to stand outside this morning and see so many smiling faces streaming in the door. Welcome. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this Unitarian Universalist congregation of Greater Naples as its minister. This is my 9th year here, in case anybody's not counting. And so I'm very happy to be here this morning. And I'm grateful for all of you for being with us this morning. Is anybody here for the first or second time that's brave enough to raise their hand? Oh my God, there's a whole section over there. That's fabulous. Welcome, welcome. It's glad to have you with us. It's great to have everybody here with us. I would especially like to give a shout out for all the volunteers who make this place hum from Sunday to Sunday. All the hospitality staff, all the people in the office, all the committees, everybody who keeps this place thriving and, as I say, humming. And that includes our worship associates, and I'm especially grateful this morning to have Perry Gotsis this morning as our worship associate. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you, Tony, and good morning to all of you. We're so glad that you're joining us today. Whether you're here, seated in the sanctuary, watching us on Facebook Live at home, or sitting out on our pavilion and watching us, please know that you are always welcome here. We are a welcoming congregation, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. Here we learn to and grow together and try to live out our values in public. If you are new to our congregation, we are especially grateful that you found us, and our hope is to make you feel welcome and help you to find ways to connect with the rest of us. I can say that I walked in the doors here about 7 or 8 years ago, having come from another very different religious community here in Naples, and I felt immediately welcomed. I felt a great sense of hospitality here, and I immediately felt part of the community and felt like one of you, and I'm very thankful for that. So now let's take a deep breath and settle ourselves into this time of worship and contemplation with the morning's prelude.
You can hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be a mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be a street light showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're all still able and bring us back together when the day is done. If we want to gonna have to sow the seeds, plant a little happiness, and let the roots run deep. If it's love that we give, then it's love that we reap. If we want a garden, we're gonna have to sow the seeds. Yeah, I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're all still able, and bring us back together when the day is done. The door is always open, your picture's on my wall. Everyone's a little broken, and everyone belongs. Yeah, everyone belongs. I want a house with a crowded table and a place by the fire for everyone. Let us take on the world while we're all still able, and bring us back together when the day is done. And bring us back together when the day is done.
We breathe the common wind of the earth, no matter where we live, who we love, what language we speak. We drink the common water of the earth, no matter what our race, how long we live, the coverings we drape on our forms. We walk the common paths of the earth, no matter our beliefs, how far we move from home, the gold we carry on our back, or its lack. May we live from these truths, our hearts open to the holiness all around us, and our hands turned always towards the common good. Let's join together in the chalice lighting response that you'll find on your order of service or up on the screen. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to be truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And let's rise as you're willing and able to join in our opening hymn, number 188 in the gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. We'll do it as a round. We'll sing it all together once. We'll do it as a round. This side I'll lead, and this side Sean will lead, and we'll see where we end up, okay? And out there on the pavilion, you can sing anytime you want, and it'll be great. So, are we ready? All together. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again. Over here. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come again. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come yet again, come. Please be seated. Thank you so much. For a minute, I thought I'd forgotten the words into the PowerPoint, so glad I didn't do that. But how many have noticed that the order of service has an incorrect date on it? How many actually really noticed? All right. A couple of folks. That's really good, actually. I apologize for that. You know, you do things automatically sometimes, and you plug in a date, and you don't change the one that you don't think you need to change, and there you go. We go about our lives sometimes that way, just assuming things. And you know what that means anyway. So I wanted to talk a little bit about border crossings and in sort of multiple layers. A border crossing is a place where we sort of take ourselves out of our comfort zone and move into something else where we need to be attentive to ourselves, to others around us, a place of maybe discomfort for us, but of challenge and growth as well. In seminary, at my seminary, Andover Newton Theological School, a border crossing was a requirement for graduation. It required us to do one of a number of possible border crossings to put ourselves out into the world and meet the other, not on our own plane, but in their space. As the catalog wrote, it said, to provide an opportunity through confronting the challenges of social context other than one's own for a social analysis, theological reflection, deeper self-knowledge, and the development of multicultural sensitivity and skills. Here you have to unpack that. And there's an assignment for each one. But it was a challenge, and the opportunities were broad. There was a trip to China to visit some new churches in China, new Christian churches. I went to a Christian seminary. There were opportunities in Appalachia to go and spend time in a church setting or in a social services setting. There were opportunities to go to Latin America. And there were challenges in an inner city environment. This could be, for me, local to Boston or wherever perhaps you were spending some time where you could focus on this. So my particular border crossing was in Boston, spending some significant time every week at the St. Francis House, which is a homeless center for women and men in downtown Boston. And I went, initially I served meals, and then I started to be one of the persons that manned the counter, helping people with their questions, providing them with their health aids, setting them up for a shower, responding to their needs for identity cards, things like that. And ultimately, I had to move a little bit beyond that because I could stand behind a desk and maybe have that little barrier as a comfort zone. My choice was to engage the community in a workshop, anybody who wanted to show up on a Friday morning, and I would offer a couple of different stories from different traditions. Initially, one of them was primarily from Scripture, from the Gospels, but then something from another tradition, and then for the group to have a conversation about it. Most of the folks who showed up were there for the coffee that I brought in, and for a warm place, especially in the middle of winter. I often came with a question for prompting a conversation, but I rarely actually needed that once I told the stories or shared the stories and engaged with this group of people. It could range from 2 people to maybe, I think the most I had in any one time was about 17. And just letting them talk about their issues, about loss, about grief. And for me, it was an awakening. It was truly an awakening to be with people who were in a completely different setting than myself, in a completely different stage of life, in a completely different socioeconomic condition than myself, and let go of who I was in my own setting and just be with folks. The only issue, I think, with border crossings like that is that they are contained. They end, and you get to sort of step away and go on with your studies or your life or whatever. It was an opportunity to deepen, to sort of strengthen those hospitality muscles. We'll be talking about hospitality today. And yet, again, it's easy to engage and then have the opportunity to step back. Considering the needs we have as a civilization, as a society, it is important for us to learn how to lean in, how to connect, how to be with others in their own space, in their own way. And it begins with developing a capacity, a willingness to engage on that level, which is hard. It doesn't require necessarily long journeys from home. In fact, I think for any one of us, that journey starts right here in the heart, of being able to open up our hearts a little bit wider than maybe sometimes we normally do. Opportunities for border crossing abound every day, every hour. You could engage the person next to you today, this morning, and find out a tremendous amount about life, about living, about all sorts of things, and learn and grow. The possibility for radical hospitality, which we'll be talking about today, exists when we do cross those borders, when we allow ourselves to do that, whether literally or figuratively, when we open ourselves to any interaction with another human being fully and openly. It demands that we let go of a certain sense of certainty of who we think we are, and instead leap boldly into uncertainty, and to be fully receptive of something new and different, to celebrate that newness with joy and gladness. There's an old tradition that says the stranger's not truly a stranger, only someone we haven't met bearing gifts. That's what our service is about today. Let's join together in singing our centering hymn this morning. It's number 1053 in the Teal hymnal. Please remain seated. How could anyone? Coming from our own places amidst the tumult and joys of our individual lives, and brought together by a desire for community, to share of ourselves with others, our joys and our sorrows, our laughter, and sometimes our pain. We've had too much loss over the past few weeks here in this congregation, and we had another loss this week in the passing of Jeff Yeager. Jeff was only 44 years old, just a kind and loving soul, and we will miss him terribly. His wife, Annie Roger Yeager, is doing okay. She's making decisions, struggling a bit, but is being well supported both by this community and by family and friends. If you feel like you can reach out to Annie Roger, then I hope you will do that. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share, please raise your hand. I will be out bringing you the microphone. Tell us who you are and briefly what's in your heart. Again, this is not a time for announcements or anything like that. It's a time for personal reflection.
Last Sunday, our 91-year-old cousin invited us to an organ recital And we all went and had a beautiful time, and we dropped her off at home afterwards. On Wednesday afternoon, she had a massive stroke, and her caregiver found her Thursday, midday, on the floor of her kitchen. I went immediately to the hospital when her daughter called from California, and I was at her side for 24 hours until her daughter came. And at this time, our cousin is dying down the street of our hospice. So we will miss her. We've had every Thanksgiving and Christmas together for several years.
Thank you, Eleanor.
First, I'd like to thank you folks, so many of you who have inquired about Marge, and I'd just like to give you an update. She had a serious wound, and that wound is going to take a long time to heal. I understand it's in the vicinity of months. Add to that arthritis, and now her difficulty in walking, and her fear that if she came to our church, that she might bump her leg, and that would be extremely painful. So she's going to be at home. She's watching our service, and I assure you that I can extend on her behalf a thank you for your inquiries.
Thank you, Ed Ostrom.
This is a real joy. Look outside the window. The purple martins are back.
I'm Janet Hoffman, and I have a joy every Sunday for at least a month, either during the service out on the pavilion or after the service during refreshment time. I have gotten to see one or two cloudless sulfurs flittering about in the garden, and it's just beautiful, and it brings me great joy. And I want to thank the garden crew for their willingness to have a butterfly garden and for native plants to come in. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Janet. If you notice the two butterfly sculptures coming in this morning, those are the work of John Roberts, and we're so grateful for that.
My name is Earl Anderson, and my joys may seem a little bit mundane, but yet I've often been told it's the little things that count. I got a haircut yesterday, and oh, there's more to the story. And so when I was in the barber shop, I took my glasses off and put them on the counter and had the haircut. And then when I went to pick my glasses up again, one lens was missing. So I, looked around the shop and couldn't find it. So it's like, well, what happened? So it must be I went through much of the day with only one lens in my glasses. But fortunately, I found them on a counter in the bathroom this morning. So, so that's a joy. Second joy is that for some reason, I still can't figure it out. I've just not been sleeping well the past few months. My wife read an article and shared it with me yesterday about one person who found a cure for insomnia, for him anyway, and that was to journal. Just before you go to bed, write down everything you think that might be keeping you awake that night. And so I tried it, and it worked. So anyway, so if anybody have any insomniacs, there's one possibility for you. But it's just so often the big things, are what take attention. But I'm trying to learn to appreciate these little things that happen.
Earl Anderson, thank you so much. Joys, sorrows, and practical advice.
I'm Chuck Dobler, and this is a joy out of a sorrow. Thank you to all of you who had sent cards on behalf of David. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. 3 months short of 4 years ago, My wife and I, Denise, made a literal and figurative border crossing to Boulder, Colorado. And during that time, we have never stopped thinking of you. It has been an exceeding joy to return here. To those of you that greeted us this morning with, "Oh, you're back," thank you. And to those of you that greeted us with, "Oh, you're back," thank you all as well. When you leave here and make that border crossing to some other location, and you come home to here, you will know how special this place is. Thank you all, and to the 50% of you that are new in the last 4 years, we look forward to getting to know you over the next couple of months.
That was Jay Shaplow and his wife Dee, and I was hesitant to hand him the microphone. For all your joys and for our sorrows, we are grateful for your sharing and recognize that in so many hearts in this sanctuary there are both joys and sorrows that are present. And we honor you and all that you are and all that you live and your place here among us. Please join me in the spirit of meditation. We need to be together for our own fulfillment and for the fulfillment of all that we hold dear. Let's spend a few moments together in silence.
vis-a-vis our theme today of radical hospitality, we're offering a poem today that I think speaks to the heart. The Red Brocade by Naomi Shihab Nye, who is an American poet, born to a Palestinian father and American mother. She was designated Young People's Poet Laureate by the Poetry Foundation, and she has published and contributed to over 30 volumes of poetry. Red Brocade. The Arabs used to say, when a stranger appears at your door, feed him for 3 days before asking who he is, where he's come from, where he's headed. That way, he'll have strength enough to answer. Or by then, you'll be such good friends, you don't care. Let's go back to that. Rice, pine nuts. Here, take the red brocade pillow. My child will serve water to your horse. No, I was not busy when you came. I was not preparing to be busy. That's the armor everyone put on to pretend they had a purpose in the world. I refuse to be claimed. Your plate is waiting. We will snip fresh mint into your tea.
Let us stay together for a time. Let us stay together for a while. When the evening is approaching and the day is almost spent, let us stay with one another for a time. All we have in common is a road. All we have in common is a journey. We are simply fellow travelers who are passing in the night. Let us stay with one another on the road for a time. Dare we trust a stranger with our dreams? Dare we trust a stranger with our story? If we cannot hide our tears, let us share our hopes and fears as we stay with one another with our dreams. All we have in common is a road. All we have in common is a journey. Simply fellow travelers who are passing in the night. Let us stay with one another on the road anytime.
That image of snipping fresh mint into your tea is a beautiful one. In my border crossing experience, it wasn't quite so genteel. I knew, however, that if I showed up with enough of those little creamers, it made a difference. I've heard it said that civilization began with a handshake. And I have no idea whether, obviously one of those sayings that if you think about it too much, you realize, well, that's not actually true, but. But we do struggle with reaching out to the stranger, to being hospitable. Even though for more than 3,000 years, seers and sages, wise women and men have invited us to see the unity in our diversity. Confucius, the Buddha, Socrates, Jesus, Mohammed, all these moral teachers, each in their own way, have invited us to consider the stranger as not so much strange, but as a different version of ourselves, a way to understand ourselves better. Theologian and great writer Henry Nouwen writes, at first the word hospitality might evoke the image of soft, sweet kindness, tea parties, a general atmosphere of coziness. And probably this has good reason, since in our culture, the concept of hospitality has lost much of its power. But still, if there's any concept worth restoring to its original depth and evocative potential, it is the concept of hospitality. It's one of the richest biblical terms. The Old and New Testament stories are rich with the idea of welcoming the stranger. In Genesis, when Abraham received 3 strangers to his tent and offered them water, bread, and a fine, tender calf, they revealed themselves to him as the Lord, announcing that his wife Sarah would finally have a child. When 2 travelers from Emmaus invited the stranger who had joined them on the road to break bread with them, he made himself known in the breaking of their bread as the Lord. When hostility is converted into hospitality, then fearful strangers can become guests, revealing to their host the promise they are carrying with them. But still, it's hard. In our daily lives, we tend to veer away from things that might be a little challenging. In my worst moments, as I face somebody that I don't know, somebody that looks, feels different than I, my worst fears come up. Fears of my own inadequacies are mixed in with that. It's also something against our nature. Contemporary moral philosophers Julian Savulescu and Ingemar Persson remind us that for thousands of years we lived in small, close-knit groups, often only the size of an extended family, working hard to scratch out sufficient food for limited resources. Thanks to our evolution in those conditions, we are supremely well adapted to that world, not only physically, but psychologically, socially, and through our moral dispositions. We are adapted to stick to our own kind, protect our immediate circle, be wary of the outsider, avoid the stranger who somehow wanders into our midst. Even today, we think of ourselves as wonderfully evolved creatures. It's quite naturalist for us to form a social sphere of people who are like us and do not feel like strangers. We surround ourselves with people who look like us, smell like us, have similar backgrounds, hold similar convictions, people who agree with us on the vital issues. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Greater Naples. It's been 23 years since Robert Putnam, Harvard political scientist, published his book, Bowling Alone, in which he wrote about the growing isolation of Americans these days. Since that time, Putnam has done some new research with some startling results. He wanted to find out what happens when groups of diverse people live in the same area, as opposed to when an area might be occupied by one homogeneous group. Putnam found that when folks live in areas with more diversity, they tend to retreat or hunker down a bit more than otherwise. And not only do they not interact as much with people who are different from themselves, but when they're living in these areas of diversity, they also tend to interact less with people who are like themselves. As much as this distressed Putnam, who is a progressive thinker, he realized that when faced with diversity, people tend to retreat, watch more TV, have fewer friends, less likely to work on community projects. Questioning these results, he went back and looked again and again, and had to admit ultimately that in the face of diversity, many of us retreat. We don't exclude the other intentionally, but our worlds tend to be small and homogeneous. We can find security in that world where all others are like me. It may be a false security, but we prefer it to no security at all, which we sometimes feel when we're out there in that non-comfortable zone. When we know intellectually that this can be very narrowing and not particularly healthy, we still do or follow these habits. When we cave in on ourselves, our minds and our souls shrink down to the size of our own self-created bubble. And a spiritually centered life in such conditions can be particularly limited. Moving in the other direction, living into connection, is a practice that requires us to be vulnerable, to pop our own bubble, to let down our well-constructed walls of security without sacrificing who we are in our wholeness, to get uncomfortable a bit and learn how to be present with people. This is particularly difficult for me, who have some social anxiety. So as usual, I'm preaching to myself as much as to anybody here. And it's one reason why we join communities like this one. The us and them thing, however, is still a problem within communities of faith. There's a certain sense of security, again, in a world where all others are like me and there's plenty of wall between us in here and them out there. Again, it's a false security, but again, we prefer that to no security at all. It is also true that faith communities throughout history have shown us, by example, ways around our less than angelic natures. The monasteries that sprung up in the middle of the first millennium were geared, yes, towards containing, in some ways, a group of like-minded individuals. But fairly soon they became places of refuge, places where people of all kinds could come and find a place to rest. Hospitality, in that sense, is a spiritual word that grew up around that time in the middle of the 5th century. Strangers in need could come for care. And the first primitive hospitals, in fact, began there. Hospital, hospice, hospitality, all from the same root word, meaning generous, caring, sustaining. The discipline that the sisters and brothers in these monasteries were encouraged to develop was one of radical hospitality, of seeing God in the stranger. True hospitality makes room for the one who is frighteningly different, treats people respectfully as if they were sacred, because they are. Hospitality requires not grand gestures, but open hearts. When I reach past my own contained ideas, I begin to stretch myself open to the world, and this opening of my heart can change everything, as it has done many times. When we acceptance is a word that's loaded with a lot of meaning. We tend to confuse it with tolerance or even approval, but acceptance is about receiving, accepting rather than judging. When we accept, we take an open stance to another person. It's more than toleration. We stand with something in the same place, appreciating the moment, who they are, who we are together, what possibilities exist between us. It's an attitude of openness to possibility. In a community like this, we have to follow the discipline of constantly asking ourselves how we will walk together in love, how we will make love the primary filter of our engagement. How can we look at our internal culture again and again and see where we are strong and where we are not so strong? How we nurture change, understanding that change often raises anxiety. How we get outside ourselves enough to see some of the things that we do to encourage sameness. How do we constantly ask, given our values that encourage us to ask, who isn't here that should be? Is a person struggling with addiction welcome here? Is a person who comes in not looking quite together welcome here? What about the person who always shows up late, who didn't go to college, who likes to move a lot to the music? Person who's forgetful, has unusual health issues, who can't contribute time or talent because they work every day, who can't contribute treasure because they have none to spare. We can name so many ways of difference. The color of our skin, the way we speak. My colleague Eric Walker Wickstrom, who I followed in my internship back up north, believes and suggests that we come to church to be transformed at the deepest level. And if that is true, what better way of transforming than understanding how and thinking about how we welcome others. Remembering that it's easier to act ourselves into a new way of thinking than it is to think ourselves into a new way of acting. Let me say that again. It's easier to act ourselves into a new way of thinking than it is to think ourselves into a new way of acting. Act first. Philosophy follows. Hospitality, rather than being something you achieve, is something you enter. It's an adventure that takes you where you've never dreamed of going. It's not something you do as much as someone you become. It's the work of a lifetime. You try and you fail and you try again. You make room for one person at a time. You give one chance at a time. And each of those choices of the heart stretches your ability to receive others. This is how we grow more hospitable, by welcoming one person when the opportunity is there in front of you. No strings attached. No checklist fluttering in the back of your mind. Our theology calls us to meet one another where we are. It calls each of us to promote the other being who they are, without the need to push them into some sort of category to become something other than what they are. It's what we all want. That's what we all need. It's why we join community. We will never be perfect in this work. It's all too easy to build walls to either hide behind or hold someone at a distance. This is a human default bred in shame and in fear from our deep past. And we are all subject to the same kind of inner struggles that hold us back. Yet it is from those same vulnerabilities that we need to live and love, risking ourselves. We are all survivors of a sort, needing to tie our life rafts around for mutual support and strength. I can only hope that we go on building a network of life rafts. May we learn to love our differences, knowing the richness they bring. May we continue to share our journeys, our common resources and fates, regardless of where we've been or how we got here. All that matters is that we are here now. No one is a stranger, and none of us should feel alone.
As we take time to reflect on today's words and music, let's also take time to show our gratitude to this community and for its hospitality and for everything that it does. This morning's offering will be gratefully received. Please consider, if you're not here, or if you are here but are so inclined, sending a contribution today. The information you need to donate is on the screen. Thank you.
There's
Announcements. I'll try to be brief, working from the distant future towards today. I hope you've all seen the notices and are excited by the fact that we're having a silent auction on March 4th out on the pavilion. Wine and food and great items to bid on. Lots of great fellowship. March 4th, check out the email blasts or the newsletter. All the information is there. It should be a great time. Next Sunday, the forum will be John Saras. Of course, I can't remember the topic. It was right there a second ago. But John has always given us a great education in his time with us in the forum. So I hope you'll be here for that. Just before that, the Reverend Dr. Sharon Harris Ewing will be offering the service next Sunday. She'll be talking about what would it feel like to be free, the rise of Christian nationalism, and also she will be sort of speaking in advance of the Wednesday Progressive Voices following that, Paul Rauschenbach, which promises to be a great Progressive Voices 2 weeks. This coming Wednesday, Joe Trachtenberg, who's part of the Collier County housing situation, is going to be speaking on Wednesday night. Housing in Collier County is a significant issue that we all should be aware of, invested in, especially housing for low-income people. And this is really a critical issue for Southwest Florida in general, here in Collier County and specifically. So come and hear Joe on Wednesday night. This afternoon, immediately following the service today, we'll be having a light lunch for those who have already signed up. But the NAACP, the UUCGN, NAACP, and the League of Women Voters are presenting a wealth gap simulation. So this promises to be a border crossing of a sort. So I hope you'll sort of be ready and put yourselves out there and experience a little bit of what the wealth gap is all about. That's after the service today at 12:45 right here. 11:45. I do always do that. I hope that you will welcome the guests who will be coming for that with openness and love. And anything else, Janet, if you're here, that I haven't said about that? It's been advertised quite a bit, so I hope you'll, oh wait.
Lunch is at 11:30, and the program will start at noon.
Lunch is at 11:30, and the program will start at noon. All right, absolutely wonderful. So, let's join in singing again together. Our closing hymn is number 1014 in the Teal Hymnal. The title in the Teal Hymnal is Standing on the Side of Love. We don't sing that anymore because we are aware that being truly welcoming means we welcome people of all abilities. And so we sing answering the call of love. So I invite you to rise and join as you're willing and able. The words will be on your screen.
Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim.
for all who are here and all who are not, for all who have ever walked through our doors, and for those who may yet find this their spiritual home, for those we can't even yet imagine filling this space. We open our hearts and give thanks. Go in peace. Go in love. Have a wonderful day.